Okay, I think we're ready to get started here. I'm going to introduce myself first, as well as the other attendees on the call in a couple of minutes here. Subject matter for today's session is a case study of one of Cireson's longer term customers, Luby's restaurants, and we're going to go through a recent move they made over to a new product from Cireson called Ticket, which is a service desk through M365 product. Excited to go through that. Just before we get to it, a few sort of general housekeeping items here to cover with anyone who's on the line. Probably seen this throughout the day today. All these sessions are being recorded. We will release those following the event. So, take notes if necessary, but there will be an opportunity to review all the content, shortly after the conference wraps. We're also going to have a live Q&A session immediately following this presentation. So, once we wrap, you can just navigate over in the Innovate portal over to the lounge section, and you'll find us in there ready to answer any questions that you might have coming out of the content. That does mean there's not much of an opportunity to ask questions along the way in this session, but you can chat with us post-session, and we look forward to that. The open floor lounge continues to be open, but we're getting to the tail end of it. So if you have any reason to be in there, that's still open for a little while longer here. Anyways, agenda for this particular session. Going to go through some introductions. Very excited to have the Luby's team on board with us. I'm going to introduce those individuals in a minute here. Then we're going to get into just sort of general background, Luby's IT landscape. Luby's came on board as a Cireson customer about 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. We're using Service Manager for a couple of years before that, and before that, ServiceNow. So kind of an interesting sort of story behind their service delivery decisions over the years. I'm going to cover that a little bit. I'm going to get into present day, 2022 and beyond, just sort of a level set on the current objectives from ITSM. That touches on, their move away from system center modules, Azure strategy. We're looking forward to talking about that. And then we'll get into a demonstration of certain elements of the Ticket product. Now, Ticket is a new product from Cireson. It is built entirely into M365, native into Teams. Some customers have seen it and experienced it already. Kind of came out of some experimenting that we've been doing for the past couple of years around Teams integration, around avenues for introducing AI ticket deflection capabilities. And obviously with 2020 and so much activity being pushed almost overnight into Teams, that became kind of a hot button topic. But we put Ticket out there as kind of a proof of concept, really, sort of an experiment, and have seen some really great response. It's been maturing, and matured to the point where the Luby's team found it and decided to move off of Service Manager and onto Ticket. And I think that will be an interesting story for some Cireson customers who, maybe over the years have not felt like they're in a position to take full advantage of the power of Service Manager. For those who continue to get a lot of value out of Service Manager, just want to emphasize that we remain committed to the system center approach. And there's actually a connector that we're going to be releasing as well. So for customers who are getting that value out of Service Manager and looking to continue using those suite of products, certain elements of Ticket's value will be available as sort of a complementary solution for those tools. So anyways, I think I mentioned this already, but in case I haven't, not necessarily an end-to-end demo of Ticket in today's session, but we are going to cover certain elements of Ticket's capabilities and kind of through the lens of Luby's end user request processing teams, some coverage of the HelpBot tool, which is part of the product, automated response knowledge base, how ticket organization and grouping is conducted, the triage and the resolution process, the automated response knowledge base, again, ticket deflection, reporting, Power BI dashboard, and so forth. So we're looking forward to showing that off in a few minutes here. So as promised, introductions. Again, my name is Joel Doss. I am the Director of Sales for Cireson. I'm also involved in the ticket solution. I guess my claim to fame is I've been here for almost 10 years, so usually well positioned to speak to almost any sort of phase of Cireson's evolution. Also have Adam Dezaki from the Cireson side. Adam's our product manager, closely tied to the System Center background, Cireson products for service manager, but also closely involved in the ticket solution as well. We're also joined by Bill Devlin, who's the Executive Director of IT for Luby's. Lewis Goodwin, who's the Service Desk Manager over there, as well as Ched Myers, who's the Systems Architect. Really excited to have you guys on board.
Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Okay. So I guess enough with the intros. Now for the main subject matter. So we just want to talk a little bit about your ITSM background, right? I mentioned it in passing. I know you deployed Service Manager, around 2016. Uncovered some of the gaps that exist out of the box from Microsoft. Brought the Cireson products in around 2018. But any commentary you guys want to add around just sort of like what drew you to the System Center modules back then, and we'll get into sort of like where you are today on the next slide.
I think prior to that, we were pretty big users of ServiceNow. There was a gap there. We were having to spend time and resources bridging the Microsoft environment together with ServiceNow. And I had an architecture that worked for me at the time come and say, hey, System Centers really and Service Manager have really developed and matured. I think what we can do is eliminate ServiceNow and start leveraging these Microsoft products. And they introduced Cireson at the time. We took a look at that. And from a cost perspective, it was the right decision to make. We saved a lot of money, but we also improved our ability to manage all this stuff ourselves. And it worked better because Microsoft had made those improvements. So we got more bang for our buck. We were able to provide a higher level of service and response to the business by leveraging that platform.
So you were one of those customers who, we talk to folks who use ServiceNow all the time, and it's kind of the Ferrari of the industry. Maybe you felt like it was a little bit overkill in your case.
Yeah, I mean, we needed a ticketing system, change management, problem management. We needed something because we had nothing. When I came on board, it was a great product, and but we needed to have somebody in house that was going to manage it and drive it. And we just didn't have the bandwidth to do that, and it was a good product for the time. But yeah, over time, as we had to continue to try and migrate and get ServiceNow working with the Microsoft environment from an integration perspective, it became more and more taxing from a resource perspective just to get those basic things taken care of. So it made sense to abandon it and start leveraging System Center, Service Manager, and then we looked into the Cireson product.
Gotcha. So you guys were a little bit of a larger organization at that time, if I'm not mistaken. Responsibility for serving well over 1,000 end users. And I know that there's been some reorg, which we'll cover a little bit on the next slide. But you were a little bit more kind of adherent to the traditional ITIL process framework back then, if I'm not mistaken.
We're very much black and white, and I liked it because it obviously you just feel good about having approvals, requests, approvals, and those processes, and we still adhere to those today. Back then it was much easier. We had a lot more technology, a lot more manpower and bandwidth to manage it. And as soon as we get to the next slide, we could talk about what ultimately happened. But yeah, we enjoyed that back then. We still want to, and we still want to today, right?
Well, yeah, and what I was going to say is, like, no doubt, you had the real estate associated with, like, we're using SCOM to monitor our infrastructure, we're using VMM to deploy that infrastructure, config manager to right? We had a cohesive story as to why we need to use all of these components together and why this made sense to kind of wrap this all together.
Right.
Yeah, the SCOM monitors we had were crazy, so it was really easy to use Orchestrator to, pull those SCOM monitors right in, and the SCCM alerts right into, Service Manager, so it opened the tickets for us, and nobody had to, hey, this is down.
Yeah.
It was, just a direct integration.
Right. Yeah, Chad, that's good input. If I'm not mistaken, like you were the kind of the primary systems architect for Service Manager and a lot of the System Center architecture, right?
There was a person on staff then that was full-time Luby's employee that did a lot of the design, and I worked with him and did a lot of the implementation and design for that. So yes.
Got it.
So no, yeah.
Well, look, for anyone attending the session right now, and I said on the previous slides, tremendous amount of scope and power to the System Center suite of products. And, for anyone who's either part of a larger organization or, still has that, heavy interest in ITIL process methodology, we think Service Manager together with System Center is going to continue to make a lot of sense. But, that said, also for anyone on the line, probably not news that, just by virtue of being on premise, carries its own sort of set of responsibilities, can be a little bit time consuming to work with, certainly process intensive, depending on what any given customer's requirements are. So we've always approached this conversation with a fair degree of, pragmatism.
It was very good for what we had in place at the time. The size and scope we were at the time, it worked very well. But as our needs as a company have changed, we needed to change what we were doing. We can no longer support our own ticketing system at that high level anymore.
Yeah.
As you've said, it's kind of like a Ferrari that never made it on the freeway. So
yeah, that's exactly it, right?
It spent all its time in the shop getting repaired.
Yeah, if the business dictates that is the best solution, it makes a lot of sense. But the Ferrari that never goes out, past 35 miles an hour is always kind of a good analogy.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But I guess we're starting to work toward the transition over to where you are today. Obviously, the move to Ticket, which is a SaaS product. But even just in terms of the end user experience, part of this, the Cireson deployment model, and the self-service portal, if we're being sort of brutally honest with ourselves, most customers will report something resembling mixed success with self-service portal adoption, right? You can get in there, you can engineer a service catalog that's as intuitive as possible, designed to, meet customers and field their requests in an easy way. Doesn't always happen that way. There seems to be always end users who want to just call IT, send an email, engage how they want to engage, right?
Yep.
And, that was one of the major sort of impetuses on our side for, really taking a good look at Teams and what Teams could bring to the table. Because we've had customers tell us, look, our end users are saying, we're communicating, we're collaborating, we're living out of Teams. Why does IT keep sending me to a separate portal when I need help with something, right? So, we want to be responsive to what end users are saying, for sure. Before we get into the specifics of the ticket product, though, I think we've got some content here around that journey to Azure, sort of the lift and shift approach versus migration and transformation. Adam, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add there to sort of set the scene on this one, but I think there's some important points to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like as Luby's was, faced with, kind of the shift or kind of, your whole reorg restructure, it kind of became, all right, we're going to look to Azure. And when you look to Azure, whether it be, Luby's or anyone else, it sounds like it really always comes down to, are we going to lift and shift? Are we going to take our entire on-premise infrastructure and just move it up to Azure? Or are we going to use this as an opportunity to begin to migrating and transform how we conduct our core business, our IT operations, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just wanted to throw up a quick slide here around, some of the comparisons I think that, maybe certainly probably Luby's and others on this call may be used to is, if you're on premise and considering just moving, right, you're just, doing that. You're moving your data center from on-premise up in Azure, right? And so you're going to continue to manage Windows servers. You're going to continue to patch them. You're going to have SQL servers. But again, the point that I want to have here is you could, if you wanted to, run System Center in a hybrid fashion, right? Let's be very clear. System Center can function like that. But it's certainly for Luby's, it sounds like though, you're looking at migrating not just, it's actually less about Service Manager. It's more about, we want to use more native Azure tooling, right?
The decision was made to go ahead and close our data center and move everything into Azure. That's so not everything is a lift and shift or migrate and transform. A lot of what we're doing is somewhere in the middle. Where we can, we're shifting everything we can over to Azure services. But when we have, websites that were designed in .NET with AD integration, on-prem AD integration, there's no way I can get those transformed in, a month or 2 or 3.
Right.
We don't have that staff anymore to go through and, transform that so we can migrate it over to the native services. So, we're lifting and shifting those, but, we redid our knowledge before, and that was a server that was directly tied to AD. But when it came back around to update, they had a module that would directly tie into Azure AD. I'm not going to redo that module. I'm not going to migrate a server when I can just go in and plug a module into my Active Directory and, shift that over there. So
right.
Everything, you got to take your time and take a look, time, money, or speed. What, pick 2. So,
Yeah. Well, and I guess to get back to a comment you made on the previous slide is, you said some of your SCOM, kind of monitors were, they're crazy. They're all over the place. Your patching is, there's a bunch of ways to do this within System Center, but it sounds like, again, as you're looking at Azure, it's let's get ready to just do a full conversion to Azure Monitor and Intune and these other things. So I guess what can you say about that?
Most of the systems that we could migrate to Intune and Azure Active Directory joined, we have done that. The everyday users systems, we're trying to get them out of having to be VPN'd in, and we migrate those over to using Intune and Azure Active Directory joined. But then we have some older systems that they've got a ton of group policies that are pushed to them for one reason or another, and it takes a little more time to push all of those GPO settings over to Intune. So you got to again take that time to study and get all of that security migrated over, so you can make sure you're not breaking any rules or CPI or PCI or whatever else you have to follow.
Yeah, and again, no less as you kind of wholly shift away from the entire System Center suite, right? From SCOM to Azure Monitor, from Config Manager to Intune, and now from Service Manager into Ticket, Orchestrator to Power Automate and Azure Automation, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, and like I said, that's what we're trying to do is shift these, but and again, it's the Orchestrator server was a lift and shift into Azure, as it was, to make sure we could shut down the data center.
Right.
But at the same time, we're trying to move as much of those automations over to Power Automate so we can get rid of that Orchestrator as a service. Sure. Operations Manager, we've pretty much shut that down now. There's not much left being monitored in there. So, everything basically, 90% of what, Service Manager did or the System Center suite did is available in Azure. It's just, that migrate and transform instead of, you know. So yeah, that's our end goal, is to get out of the, you know, to as much as we can get rid of that, you know, on-prem AD. But
Sure. And then,
Joel and Adam too, just to provide some context here. Why did we ultimately get to why are we going where we want to go? You know, pre-COVID, we had 200 locations. We had an IT department of 21 people, very healthy data center. Obviously you can hear we had a very healthy footprint. That was expensive and cost a lot of resources to manage. Fast forward to today, with, you know, some business decisions, we're down to 46 restaurants, right? We have a team of 5 in IT. The data center was not going to be sustainable from a financial perspective or from a manpower perspective. We just couldn't continue to take advantage of all those tools with the smaller footprint and reduction in revenue. So, you know, we engaged Chad and the group he's working with to get us to where we're migrating everything from a data center model into an Azure model that's going to reduce our footprint. We're not giving up functionality. We want to continue to have and maintain ITSM standards and procedures and processes. And as you can tell in what Chad's talking about, this is a combination of lift and shift and a migrate and transform. But we have to continue to look at everything we do as a company. And you know, the Cireson platform was fantastic. We built it out. We had not just ticketing, change management, problem management. We had a very healthy suite of service requests, but it was not going to be cost effective for us to continue to manage a platform. We looked at other platforms from a ticketing perspective, and that is how we ended up arriving at Ticket. And I know we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I want to provide some context on why did we make some of the decisions that we're making. I think by the end of the day, when we're done with this migration to Azure, we're going to be smaller, nimbler, more cost effective, and can provide a higher level of support to the end user experience, which in our business is restaurants that are very customer facing, right? They cannot be in a position where they're waiting, you know, 24 hours for a problem to be resolved. They've got a customer standing in their face, and we want to be able to, we want to have a nimble ticketing system. Ticket seemed like it was a really good fit, and so far it's been working out. And I know we'll get into that here shortly.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say that's great background. I think it's also a good segue into the next slide here. You know, you touched on a lot of this already, actually. You know, there's the organizational reorg that you've gone through. I mean, I think we've had some good coverage around the Azure technology sort of shift. You know, I know one of the things that you've said in a number of previous conversations, and I touched on it on the sort of like that, you know, end user self-service portal comment, that, you know, best laid plans with self-service portals. You know, some users adopt it and it's fine. Others tend to, you know, adopt it begrudgingly. Others refuse. So I know that, you know, introducing Ticket into the process has been a help just from, you know, your end users following the correct channels to request help, right? They're running things as intended, which is exciting.
We didn't even have to really do a training session for them. We just deployed the help bot, and they started picking up on it right away. Like before we even sent out email 1, we got a few tickets through, and then we sent out an email saying that we were having some people testing it. We didn't have to have a training session for them. They just, with a brief email, we said, go to the help bot, type in what you need, and they were able to do it right away. And then once we rolled it out system-wide, once again, we sent an email that said, just start using it, and they were intuitive. They picked it right up. So it was a very easy
general FYI, and off to the races.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Joel, it was, you know, look, when COVID hit, we were already we were probably casual users of Microsoft Teams, and when COVID hit, it was a lot of work from home. You know, everybody rapidly became, you know, adopters of Teams, not just in, you know, for everything Teams has available, creating teams, chatting, telephoning. I mean, And then when we finally came, so for 2 years, we've been avid users of Microsoft Teams.
Mhm.
Ticket was just a natural progression of the next thing to do with Microsoft Teams. And to Lewis's comments, we did a drip campaign, of, hey, we're going to be replacing the Cireson portal with Microsoft Ticket. And, once we put the bot out there, it was like, we just picked an end date of, on such and such date, the Cireson portal is going away. This will be the way you create tickets. And, people just started using it right away, just naturally. So it was a real simple implementation. Whereas, Cireson, when we rolled it out, was, it's a pretty heavy indoctrination of training with end users. And again, with 1,300 end users, a little more challenging than just the 300 we have today. But this has just been a natural progression. And the thing I like is when I talk to restaurant managers and end users in the office, they love the platform, right? So when you talk about adoption, which is always a challenge with the end user, why do I have to make a ticket? It's so hard to do that. These guys just pull out their phone. They could be standing out at a cash register in front of customers, pull their phone out, go to Teams and make a ticket. My credit card machine's not working, as an example. And then to help what we like about it from an internal perspective is, we're not having to call the restaurant and talk to the manager. We can collaborate with them through ticket, through texting. We can even, we can call them on their mobile device through Microsoft Teams, and we're able to close tickets much, much faster because we're cutting down the response time it takes to get a hold of that end user and do some troubleshooting.
Yeah, and that feedback is in line with what a lot of our customers have been saying the last couple of years. I think it's pretty obvious that the Teams can and should play a much more prominent role in service delivery. Again, like your users heard this a million times. Okay, well, we communicate with everyone through Teams, and it's great, but IT keeps trying to steer us to a separate portal, and we just want to know why. So
this is really natural, guys. It was a natural. The natural thing to do was to put this in Teams. It was a good business decision. The president of our company is the biggest cheerleader of Ticket. Biggest. I mean, we'd send out a drip notification, and he would reply everybody, this is the most exciting change we've made since I purchased the company, which was 7 or 8 months ago. He's a tech savvy guy, and he loves it. And when you can get the team leadership behind something like this, they're out there. If they're the one that's out there being the cheerleader for an IT product, that's win-win, right? Because you get somebody that isn't, you're just fighting an uphill battle trying to get people to follow a new process. So it's been a win-win for us from an IT and operations perspective. We're all happy with it so far.
Sure.
I've been really surprised at how much positive feedback we got, which is really good. And the variety, when you've got the owner of the company and the little guy at the restaurant saying the same thing, that this is great, I love it, keep doing it, that's saying something.
Ideal.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Yep. Cool. No, again, great context.
I think
myself need to play a little time cop here because I want to make sure that we don't run out of time. But Chad, sorry, you had something you wanted to ask?
One of the things that I think was you guys have mentioned before that, for us, it's a big time save, or for the help desk, it's a big time save because they're not trying to call the store 20, 30 times or be on the phone for 20 or 30 minutes waiting for the manager to come actually talk to them. So they can just hit them up on Teams and they're answering right away. So just
right.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, he's not exaggerating. He's not exaggerating on those numbers either. I can tell you.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Cool. All right. Well, the capabilities listed on this slide, I know your team shared these requirements with us like the first time we really took a good hard look at Ticket. And I know that you guys were sort of the perspective of like, look, we know we might not get a apples for apples feature parity with Service Manager and Cireson products. and ticket. But these are our priorities. Now, you talked a lot about, obviously seamless integration with M365, AD credentials, Zentune, the dynamic knowledge base, service catalog, dashboard for overviews of active and closed tickets, SLA management, a lot of the terminology that, any really service desk customer is going to recognize.
Yeah, and certainly one I think, people in the land of service manager, like a lot of this should seem and feel very familiar.
Yep. So I don't know if you guys, we've touched on a lot of this so far, which is great, but I think we're pretty close to getting to the demo portion of this session. But before we do that, do you guys have any other comments or interjections on, so what was important to you when considering a move away from Service Manager?
Well, obviously, end user engagement is always your top. If you can't get end users to use whatever you're selling, you're gonna fail no matter what. We did that. This is exactly what we talked about here. Of the thing, and again, it's probably important to say, we just went live with Ticket 4 weeks ago, probably after doing testing and development. So we're new to it. But we're real happy with it, and we're extremely happy with the response on requests, on the things that we want to get Ticket to do for us. We know it's still in a stage of being developed. We're kind of flying the plane here while it's being built. But I don't mean that in a negative connotation. You guys have been great to work with so far. We were great partners with Cireson. We know that the things that we don't have today, we'll get. It's going to come eventually. So we're very excited about the opportunity to work with Ticket. And again, thus far, we're happy with everything we have so far.
Great, cool. Well,
I have to say it's very nimble. If we need to make an adjustment to a priority or add one, it's a lot simpler just to go in and do it.
Yep.
I love the fact that it doesn't take much engineering. I don't have to set up servers. It's a SaaS product, so. That's awesome.
We can talk about a change we'd like to see in the morning meeting. I can implement it an hour later, and it can be done as soon as I implement it. So it's something very easy to work with.
Great. Okay.
Yeah. So I would say, with that said, let's go over to a demo. I'll jump to share my desktop so you can see just again some of these features that we're talking about within the context of Ticket. Again, like Joel said, a lot of this functionality is going to be available via Service Manager if you want, but also want to focus on how Luby's is using this today and a lot of how these integrations just exist out of the box. So let's go over to that now.
Perfect.
All right, so let's actually jump into this now. So I'm Teams, and I'm sending as two separate users right now, and just to kind of set the stage here. In my Teams Lite theme, I'm sending as Adele. She's one of the end users. And in the background there, in the Teams Dark theme, I'm sending as Diego, and he's one of our analysts. So I guess just to start and kind of set the stage with Adele, if Adele is looking to get help, all she has to do is start a conversation with HelpBot. And this conversation can really be anything. It's meant to be conversational. After all, we're in Teams. So, if she was having a problem with email, she could say, something up with email. When she says something up with email, HelpBot will respond back with, hey, make sure Outlook is in online mode first, right? And have the opportunity here to say if something was helpful. Yes, this was. No, this wasn't. I can also, again, depending on how I phrase my question and how I ask something here, I could say like, I need to get a new laptop ordered. And when I say that, now you'll notice the response changes just ever so slightly. Rather than just getting text back, I'm actually now getting a custom form. I'm getting a custom layout that allows me to pick, what is the style of laptop I want? What is the reason I need this laptop, right? Again, something that probably Service Manager customers are familiar with. Again, you can see that here. So we have a very interactive, dynamic knowledge base, front and center, serving up answers, and also, again, serving up templates, serving up custom forms, all within the same conversation, right? Just by starting a conversation with HelpBot. And if I want to now move forward with making this ticket, right, whether it be in either case here, I could say like, no, this answer wasn't helpful, something up with the email. Let's just submit this. When I submit this, what's going to happen is now HelpBot's going to come back and say, hey, no problem. We've created a ticket for you. That's all it took. So as far as like getting a conversation started, to get a ticket created, and I'm sure, someone from Luby's may want to chime in here, right? All you have to do is start a conversation. This is all it takes to create a ticket. And so I know you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's real simple, and our users picked it up right away, as I was saying earlier. That all you have to do is just go to the HelpBot, type something. You've got some knowledge in there. It'll let them know, hey, check this out. Like with the thing you just did with the Outlook, or it'll ask them, hey, would you like to submit a ticket? And our users just really right away picked up on it. So
yeah. And so I guess now, this probably then leads to the next question of, right, so your end users pick this up pretty quickly, but I know you, right? You are going to have to probably pick this ticket up, right? And so it kind of leads to the next section of like, how do I now work this ticket? What is my analyst experience inside of Teams? So let's go over to Diego, where he can talk with ticket. He can have a conversation, say like, what's going on, where, what should I work on? But you'll notice that he's got a notification in Teams. And if we head over there, right, again, I'm sure this is something you're probably used to seeing, is when those tickets get created, they get posted into your IT team. And I guess specifically, they get posted into your IT team and inside of their triage channel, right? The kind of the catch-all of here's where all the new tickets are going to be arriving.
Yep.
And something, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Our level 1 support takes all the triage tickets, so we set our system up to all tickets flow into level 1, and then with some automation, we set it to automatically assign to level 1, so it gets their attention.
Right.
It gives them the notification that, hey, there's a new ticket, and then also it's in your ticket queue.
Yeah. And so then, I mean, I guess, and as you're talking about like level 1, the other thing curious, if you've done yet, but again, ticket also supports is kind of these multiple tiers of support, right? I have a triage channel, which you could think of as level 1, but I also have these other areas to see where those tickets are kind of coming into, or or which team, I guess, is associated with those tickets, right? So I could see like, here's my level 2 support group, right? And all of the tickets associated there. All right, yeah, so cool. So, I think then, the next thing that probably comes up though is like, how would you configure this? How do I manage what maybe some of my classifications are, right? It's speaking to, I know, a Chad, and I think both of you were saying earlier, right? Is the agility that you have to just quickly go make changes. So over at web.ticket.ai, right, you can see all of your tickets in kind of this list view, but it's also where you can configure all of these settings, right? So kind of to bring this back as where we started with HelpBot, how does it know how to respond to these things? And again, I just want to show kind of like the ease by which this can be done. If I wanted to, for example, see all of the templates that I'm building, all the templates that I'm working with. Oops, sorry, I got kicked out there. If I want to see all these templates, here they are, right? And so let's go to new hardware request, because I did ask for a new laptop, right? So here's the template for a new laptop, right? So I could say when that ticket comes in, here's the properties that are going to be set. Here's maybe the group that it goes to, as you were referencing earlier. But then also I have the opportunity to build now that custom form, right? I can design the layout. I can choose my prompts, right? So if I go to style here, right, you can see here's my picker. Here's my list of choices that I had for what kind of laptop that someone wants. And you can see that I've set up something like, my users see low end, mid range, and high end, but behind the scenes, I can have my own specific descriptors. Now, while I've set the template here, it doesn't really do much in terms of like, how is this presented now to somebody? So all we had to do is actually head over to knowledge. We're going to see a couple different things in play. So in my knowledge base is what I'm going to use to drive the kind of responses that my users get. And again, I think what's really interesting here is that we're using artificial intelligence to start inferring what people mean, even though if they don't get the phrasing exactly right. And with that drives maybe a knowledge article, right? So when I said, something up with email, right? I don't have something up with email listed here, but again, using AI, we're inferring that you probably mean this, and then it returns this response. Same thing for like if I wanted to get a new laptop ordered, right? I need a new laptop, want to order some hardware. It now serves that template I defined. And I'm sorry, I don't know if I interrupted you there if you're going to say something.
No, I haven't really gotten into templates too much yet, but with knowledge, I have set up quite a bit of it with just generic responses. Try this, try that.
Sure.
Do these troubleshooting steps. Did this help? Yes,
right.
No, put in ticket. But templates we still haven't experimented with yet.
And there's nothing wrong with that, Adam. Just like, because some people may say, well, you're trying to push it off on the end user. These are questions and responses that we're going to have to call the end user anyway and ask them to try this, try this, try this. And look, a lot of end users, they want to hear a human being on the other end of a phone. I get it. But by the end of the day, once we help people understand, look, all we're doing is we're asking you to do the things we would do if we called you and waited 15 minutes for you to pick up the phone.
We're helping
right?
you solve that faster.
Once they've understood that, then they're good with it.
Yeah, and again, even as you're getting started with knowledge here, right, and setting up some of these basic responses, you still have the opportunity to move into a template, right? This is not like I've set it and now I have to go delete it. You can always re-edit and kind of move into a template or into a custom form rather. All I have to do is just click on use template. So I guess the last thing last two things I want to touch on is, the other thing I know that, you mentioned around SCCM and Intune is that we also have Intune integration. So if I were to go to my users, right, and I had, some users and their devices linked up, right, I can see like all of their devices and all of their information here around like, free space, around is the device compliant, et cetera, et cetera. But again, front and center inside a ticket. But the last thing I want to touch on, and I know it's something that is a topic probably everyone in the land of service manager is familiar with, and certainly I no doubt Luby's was familiar with as well. How do we report on this? Like, what is it going to take to report on this data? Do I have to write SQL queries to do this? Like, how do I get this out of ticket? So the other thing that we also offer with ticket is a dedicated dashboard that allows you to integrate completely natively with Microsoft Power BI. So if you're using Microsoft Power BI, you can connect to your ticket instance and visualize all of this data. And again, the best part of all, immediately share it within the context of those teams, right? Like you could put this on a SharePoint, you could put this inside of a Teams tab, wherever you want.
We have ours in Teams tabs, just like yours is set up. Pretty much the same. We got a little clever and made a dark mode though.
Okay.
So,
that's fine.
But
don't worry.
That's allowed.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, we find this very useful. It allows Bill to just take a look at this in the morning instead of having to dig into it more. But Bill still does dig into it because he loves the Convi view of ticket and seeing all the tickets in that view. I don't think you showed that off.
Yeah, it's true.
Maybe you could switch to that real quick and give them a view of that as well.
Yeah,
this is Bill's Keurig view, basically.
well, yeah, I was going to say, it's like, do we want to, Bill? Do you want to show this, or
Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy to show those.
Okay.
Real quick.
All right. Let me
Yeah.
stop sharing real fast.
If you guys see my my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've created. Obviously, we have 5 channels, and these channels could be anything you want, right? But we have the new incoming triage here. These are the tickets here that are in progress and being worked on. We actually categorize. If we're waiting on a user, that ticket shows up here, and we basically have said we're putting the onus of the end user to provide feedback to make sure that their ticket's been either remediated or they've taken a couple steps and that didn't work. We've broken a channel down into waiting vendor and a pending, and then obviously go further right. There's resolved and closed tickets, which I don't really care to look at. I'm only concerned with live. But from these you can click on these tickets, you can open them up and get better detail. Where we're at.
I saw one with Chad's name on it a minute ago.
Yeah, well, we keep everybody busy.
I understand. You still have the that full auditing history of kind of all the changes that are getting made on tickets.
Yeah, right there, right. So I mean, there's all the details here. So I really like this because if I'm working on other things and I want to see what kind of activity is going on with calls right now. I can come up to this and check this page out and and then there's a lot of times I'll call up Sunny and say, hey, where are we at with some of these tickets here?
Yeah.
As it pertains to the dashboard, when you guys said that, hey, this is really easy, I'm not I love dashboards, but Power BI and data sets and stuff is not my forte. But you guys did like a 5-minute training session with Sunny. And like 10 minutes later, he's like, hey, check it out. And he put this up, and we can continue to, create more categories. I really like to know, in our industry, credit cards are your top issue. That's a problem, right? I can share that with the vendor. Who's got the workload, right?
Yeah.
Chad's not doing his fair share. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm looking forward to, as we continue to build more and more macro categories in here to break things down. I don't want to be overkill, but I really love category value. I love seeing who's getting the work done. I'm looking forward to how we continue to build that out.
Yeah, I have some ideas on it.
I think that this shows that where we were talking about earlier, where it's nimble. Adding the credit card in as a category. You notice there's a lot of tickets coming in for something. You add a category so you can start reporting on that and seeing what your effect are. It's not it's not a big change that needs a bunch of regression testing to make that change.
Yeah, and it doesn't require end users to do the work, right? I mean, it's but if credit cards come in, Sunny, I'm sure you can, as you're building out your knowledge base and stuff, you can probably self-categorize that ticket to credit cards.
I already have.
Yeah. See, I mean, in our industry, the things I get really hot on are, what's out there that's customer facing. I mean, if somebody can't log into their computer, I'm not overly concerned with that. But if a POS terminal's down, credit card's down, things that are customer facing, I mean, we put that, high priority. That's automatically a level 1 priority, right?
Yeah. So
that's why I like looking at that stuff. But yeah, very nimble. I just, the amount of work we've been able to do, and here's a positive comment. Another positive comment is, for me to have gotten that dashboard in ServiceNow would have taken me weeks to figure out. Weeks. Sunny did it in like 5 minutes. So.
Slight difference in timeline there.
Yeah.
A little, just a little, right?
Well, look, some great conversation today. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I think we're most of the way through the intended subject matter. Does anyone have any other comments or something you wanted to point out?
I'm good. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I guess probably one last comment, when Bill brought this in, brought this to us at first, a lot of us,
Oh, yeah.
IT people cringed and went, no, we don't want to bring in a whole new product. And
We had concerns.
yeah, Cireson, when they did the demo, I mean, I think it was supposed to be a half an hour, and an hour and 45 minutes later, we're, still asking questions and just,
Sure.
Sounds about right.
and at that point, everybody was like, okay, my complete mindset's changed. Let's go.
Yeah.
No, look, I mean, I don't think it's any secret, we have a lot of excitement around Ticket. Again, we've been sort of having this Teams conversation and, Azure story sort of floating around for the last couple of years. At first glance, a little bit of a non-traditional approach to service delivery. Certainly not what everyone's used to, especially coming from an on-prem, service manager background. But we're glad that you guys have made this move. Have a lot of excitement around, the next phase, and really appreciate the participation in this session. I mean, this is great. This is great input, and I think hope a lot of our customers, are getting value out of the subject.
But if they have questions, this is a great transition, Joel.
Thank you.
If you have questions.
Thank you, Adam. It's almost as if you looked at the slide I reshared here. So yeah. Okay. Another reminder, this is a recorded session. It'll be available shortly after the event. We are going to transition over into the Q&A lounge after this session. So once we wrap up, just get into the Innovate portal, the lounges, and some of us will be over there ready to respond to any questions that you have. Aside from that, really appreciate joining us today and in all the sessions leading up into this one. So ready to sign off.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks
Appreciate
again.
the opportunity.
Absolutely.